Let's discuss how a kid from Compton transitioned from imitating Lil Wayne on mixtapes in his basement to winning a Pulitzer Prize and becoming a prominent figure in hip-hop. This isn't merely a tale of a rapper gaining fame. It's about someone who thoroughly honed his craft, put in the effort, and remained committed to his vision, ultimately transforming not just rap, but also our perception of its possibilities. It's crucial to recognize that Kendrick Lamar had to begin somewhere, and that beginning wasn't always glamorous. Some of his early work is rough, experimental, and even somewhat awkward. Yet, that's precisely what makes his journey so intriguing. So get ready, as we are about to rank every single Kendrick Lamar project, from the forgettable to the truly legendary. Welcome to Celebrity Rap Life, where the red carpets never roll up and the spotlight never fades. The rewards are legendary, because in Celebrity Rap Life, every downfall can become a comeback, and every headline tells a deeper story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next. Kendrick Lamar Duckworth entered this world in Compton, California back in 1987. Think about the timing for a second. He was barely out of diapers when NWA dropped Straight Outta Compton in 1989 and put his city on the map as the epicenter of gangster rap. The streets he would grow up on were the same streets that spawned Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Eazy-E. You could almost say it was destiny that this kid who started calling himself K-Dot would eventually sign to Dr. Dre's Aftermath label and become the biggest thing the West Coast had seen in a generation. But destiny doesn't tell the whole story. What people forget is that Kendrick didn't just appear out of nowhere as a fully formed genius. He started recording mixtapes at 16 years old, grinding in obscurity, learning his craft, studying every rapper who came before him like he was cramming for the most important test of his life. All those early projects, the ones most fans have never heard, they're proof of something important. Greatness isn't born, it's built. When Kendrick, still going by K-Dot, dropped his first project on Top Dog Entertainment, he boldly announced himself as the future of the New West. That's a hell of a thing for a teenager to say, but Training Day showed he wasn't quite there yet. This mixtape is interesting mainly as a time capsule, a snapshot of a young artist still figuring out who he was. And who was he imitating? Lil Wayne. Not subtly either. He raps exactly like Weezy throughout the whole tape, even doing that signature chuckle after his punchlines, like he's trying on someone else's personality. You can hear flashes of something special, brief moments where his own voice starts to peek through, but mostly this is a kid studying at the feet of his idol. DJ Ski, who gets credit for giving Kendrick some of his first radio spins, produced a couple of the better tracks here, including Blame God and Blow Them Horns. But let's be real, this one's for completists only. Now here's where it gets interesting, almost ironic really. Years down the line, Lil Wayne would publicly say he was disappointed about not getting picked for the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show in New Orleans, losing out to Kendrick Lamar. But back in 2009, Lil Wayne loved Kendrick so much, he dedicated an entire mixtape to him, using beats from the Carter 3 like it was his personal playground. By this point, though, something had shifted. Kendrick had started developing his own voice, or more accurately, his own voices, plural. When he jumped on instrumentals from tracks like Mr. Carter and Let the Beat Build, he wasn't just copying anymore. He was finding new rhythms in the beats, switching up his tone and perspective, rotating through different characters and flows like he was showing off everything he'd been practicing in private. This wasn't just a tribute tape anymore, it was a declaration. Before Top Dog Entertainment ever heard him, before he was even old enough to vote, K-Dot put out his very first mixtape at just 16 years old. 16. Let that sink in for a minute. There haven't been many teenage rappers in history who sounded this hungry, this technically skilled at such a young age. Maybe LL Cool J, maybe Prodigy from Mobb Deep, But the list is short. Sure, he didn't have access to great producers yet. Some of his original songs sound cheap compared to the freestyles he was dropping over industry beats. There's a track called Hood Walk Pimp Talk that might genuinely be the worst thing he's ever released. But when you hear young K-Dot flowing over classic Jay-Z beats, stealing Rockefeller instrumentals and making them his own, you realize what you're witnessing: a student studying the masters before he became one himself. Now let's talk about something confusing. Extended albums, or EPs, are supposed to be shorter than albums, right? That's generally how it works, but sometimes young artists make something that's basically album length and call it an EP anyway because they don't see it as their real debut yet. That's exactly what happened with the Kendrick Lamar EP. 14 songs, 62 minutes of music. That's longer than some full albums. Compared to what came later, it feels a bit cautious, like he's testing the waters instead of diving in headfirst. But this is where you start seeing Kendrick transform from a technically skilled rapper into something more cerebral, more thoughtful. He's tackling bigger themes, asking harder questions, building more complex songs. One critic noted that the strength of Kendrick's flow was his ability to ride beats in creative ways, adapting and shifting like water finding its path. You could feel something building here, something that wouldn't stay contained much longer. Here's a name casual Kendrick fans might not know: J-Rock. Johnny McKenzie Jr., a rapper from Watts, was the first artist ever signed to Top Dog Entertainment. He was the trailblazer, the one who got the first major label deal, the first charting single, the first XXL freshman cover. Back in 2007, K-Dot was literally J-Rock's opening act on tour, the warm-up guy. But on their collaborative mixtape, No Sleep Till NYC, something wild happens. They sound like equals. The chemistry is natural, effortless, with both of them trading bars back and forth, sometimes joined by their new label mate, Ab-Soul. What makes this tape special is watching Kendrick step outside his comfort zone. These proud California rappers decided to spend most of the project rapping over New York beats, tackling classics from Biggie and Nas, even going back to the 80s with Eric B. and Rakim and Slick Rick. And K-Dot sounded right at home, proving he could adapt to any style, any era, any coast. By 2010, the puzzle was complete. Schoolboy Q joined Top Dog Entertainment, and suddenly you had Black Hippie, the Los Angeles supergroup that would help define West Coast hip-hop for the next decade. Overly Dedicated marked the beginning of TDE's golden era, bringing together all the Black Hippie members, plus the label's in-house production team, Digiponics. This is also where Mark Soundwave enters the picture, the producer who would become Kendrick's closest collaborator and help define his sound for years to come. But Soundwave hadn't found his signature style yet, and some of his beats on this mixtape fall flat. There's one called Michael Jordan that sounds like a weak imitation of Lex Luger's trap sound. Still, Overly Dedicated was a major step forward, showing what TDE could do when everyone worked together. Fast forward to 2018, and Ryan Coogler's Black Panther became a phenomenon, one of the biggest and best films in the entire Marvel universe. But what really pushed it over the edge as a cultural moment was the soundtrack, an entire album curated by Kendrick Lamar and TDE CEO Anthony Tiffy. Kendrick didn't just slap his name on this thing and collect a check. He co-wrote every single song, and even when he's not officially listed as a featured artist on the album, you can hear his voice popping up with ad-libs and bars throughout the album. It's a massive collaboration featuring the whole TDE roster, superstars like The Weeknd and Future, and rising West Coast talent like Vince Staples and SOB/RBE. What's brilliant is how Kendrick brought his usual conceptual depth to the project, rapping from the perspective of both the hero and the villain of Black Panther, T'Challa and Killmonger. As one reviewer put it, while not as powerful as Lamar's solo work, the soundtrack was similarly diverse, mixing sensual R&B with dark street energy and bright electronic dancehall vibes. Something unusual happened during the rollout for To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick started performing songs on late-night television and even the Grammys that weren't actually on the album. These were outtakes, tracks that didn't make the final cut. Fans went crazy demanding to hear studio versions, and apparently a tweet from LeBron James was enough to make it happen. TDE released Untitled Unmastered, 34 minutes of material from the Butterfly sessions that felt like its own distinct project rather than just bonus tracks. Not everything here deserved to see the light of day. There's a recurring chant that goes pimp, pimp, hooray that's exactly as awkward as it sounds. But the loose, inspired jams with Butterfly collaborators like Thundercat and Terrace Martin make it worthwhile. Think of it like those Bruce Springsteen archival releases that show you what got left behind. Sometimes seeing what an artist chose not to include helps you understand why the final album was so perfect. 1,855 days. I've been going through something. Be afraid. That's how Kendrick opens Mr. Morales and the Big Steppers, literally counting every single day of the 5-year gap since Damn. After battling writer's block for years, he finally broke through, and when the dam burst, everything came pouring out. This album is overflowing with provocative, uncomfortable, necessary conversations. Songs about gender identity like Auntie Diaries, songs about generational trauma like Mother I Sober. It's a lot to process, sometimes almost too much. Then there's We Cry Together, where Kendrick and actress Paler Page act out a brutal relationship argument that's so intense, so raw, it nearly derails the whole album. All of Kendrick's major label albums are thoughtful and layered, but Mr. Morales is the hardest one to just sit with and enjoy. It doesn't have that undeniable single he usually delivers, and tellingly, after his next album dropped, he basically stopped performing any of these songs live. It's important work, but it's not easy listening. Most Kendrickans fall into one of two camps. There are the people who discovered him through his major label debut, Good Kid, M.A.A.D. City, and then there are the early believers who were already obsessed with Section 80 and consider it one of his greatest achievements. Section 80 was such a powerful statement that just 1 month after its release, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg literally brought Kendrick on stage and crowned him the new king of the West Coast. But he hadn't quite figured out how to translate his best artistic ideas into radio hits yet. The most commercial-sounding songs on Section 80 are actually some of the weakest, like the clunky No Makeup, Her Vice. Thankfully, you also get incredible tracks like ADHD, the only Section 80 song that Kendrick still performs regularly a decade later. One critic perfectly captured his style on this album, describing how his fluid melodic rap and frantic tumble of syllables evoked that feeling when you're high enough that your thoughts come fast and crash into each other. When Damn dropped, Atlanta hitmaker Mike Will Made It had produced 3 songs for it, including the chart-topping Humble. Here's a fun fact, that thumping, piano-driven trap beat was originally made for Gucci Mane. Even with obvious commercial moves like that and the Rihanna collaboration Loyalty, Damn remained a dense, challenging album. Kendrick spent the runtime contemplating faith and fate, wrestling with pride and purpose on restless autobiographical tracks like Pride and Duckworth. It didn't break revolutionary new ground the way To Pimp a Butterfly did, but its massive commercial success proved something subtle and powerful. Kendrick had changed mainstream hip-hop more than mainstream hip-hop had changed him. He could top the charts on his own terms. After Kendrick demolished Drake with Not Like Us, the album he dropped a few months later could have easily been a simple victory lap, a continuation of the beef, maybe some shots fired while the iron was hot. Instead, GNX surprised everyone by being a vital, essential addition to his catalog. This is his most unapologetically West Coast album ever. DJ Mustard beats knocking in your trunk, guest verses from rising California MCs like AZ Chike and Lefty Gunplay, even a Tupac sample on the fiery Reincarnated. But it's not all street anthems and aggression. Reflective tracks like Heart Part 6 and the massively popular SZA collaboration Luther give the album emotional depth and variety. GNX is the collection of trunk-rattling bangers that a rapper at Kendrick's level deserves to have in his arsenal, proof he can still make the cars bounce while maintaining his artistic integrity. Becoming the rapper's rapper, the MC that hip-hop purists point to as the future of the culture, that can create impossible expectations. Rappers like Lupe Fiasco, Saigon, and Jay Electricon navigated that minefield with mixed results, the weight of anticipation sometimes crushing them. But Kendrick Lamar pulled off something remarkable with his major label debut. He became a household name with an album that was subtle, ambitious, and uncompromising. Good Kid, M.A.A.D. City includes a harrowing 12-minute epic called Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, right in the middle of it. The album uses audio interludes like a film, threading a narrative through the songs to create a complete story about growing up in Compton. It builds on Dr. Dre's legacy of popularizing gangsta rap while introducing the voice of a new generation with envelope-pushing production from young beatmakers like Hit Boy and DJ Dahi. One reviewer described it as an appropriately jittery epic about the endless stress of Compton life, with Kendrick's internal dialogue splattering across multiple musical movements as peer pressure suffocates and gangs wage war and lovers quarrel and alcohol intoxicates and friends die and mothers nag. It's beautiful and brutal, loving and unflinching. The first album an artist makes after commercial success is maybe the biggest test of who they really are. Some artists chase the money, some rebel against expectations, some just try to repeat the formula. Kendrick Lamar followed Good Kid, M.A.A.D. City with an album that was even more purposeful, even more fearless, even more willing to take risks. I'll never forget hearing a DJ drop All Right in a Baltimore nightclub at the height of the Freddie Gray protests, even before it became the album's defining single, and maybe the defining Kendrick Lamar song, period. And I'll never forget being one of the lucky few to witness the live debut of several Butterfly songs at the Kennedy Center, and learning years later that it's my teenage son's favorite Kendrick album too. With a supporting cast that included saxophonist Kamashi Washington, electronic producer Flying Lotus, and legends like George Clinton and Ronald Isley, Kendrick infused To Pimp a Butterfly with jazz, funk, and soul, while taking inventory of his life and examining race in America with some of his most fearless verses of his career. His reach sometimes exceeded his grasp. The last verse of The Blacker the Berry suggests he wasn't entirely aligned with the Black Lives Matter movement at the time, but it's such a bold, ambitious album that even its imperfections feel deliberate, like they're part of some larger design. This is the sound of an artist refusing to play it safe, refusing to give people what they expect, choosing instead to create something that would challenge, inspire, and endure. That's why it stands at the top. This story is far from over, and the truth is still unfolding. I want to hear what you think. Drop your take in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next.